Hello everybody, Dave Neal here. We have a breaking story, just came out on Variety about Colton Underwood. It is a wild read. I got about halfway through it and just realized, normally I'll pull clips and quotes and there's too much going on in this story. Colton Underwood talks about getting blackmailed by going to a gay-friendly massage parlor, and photos were taken to him, blackmailed, and then he had to tell his publicist and confide in his publicist, and then eventually that was the thing that led to him coming out of the closet. He discusses Cassie Randolph and how he had never physically assaulted her, which he was never really accused of. I think we need to understand that what he did was very wrong. Variety's getting a lot of comments on their Instagram about how they shouldn't be having an abuser on their cover. The story's bananas. I didn't think it could get any weirder, but let's just dive right into it. And if you aren't familiar with the story, Colton Underwood was the Bachelor from the several years ago, which is, in its current framing, a heterosexual dating show. So he was living a straight life, a closeted gay man, fell in love, ended up putting a tracking device under the trunk of his ex's car, showed up in her alleyway at 3 a.m., made a fake phone number to stalk and harass her. Those are all accusations she made, filed a temporary restraining order. She had later dropped the restraining order, and Colton mentions that he and Cassie actually have an agreement in their settlement not to talk about certain things, but he actually shares more in this article than he shared with the whole story before here. So let's just get into it. Of course, you can't separate all of these articles from the actual promotion that's being done for his Netflix show, which he's come under fire for, coming out of the closet with sort of a way of monetizing it all. Let's read the article. Leave a comment, hit the like button, and let me know what you guys think. Colton Underwood, the first gay bachelor, confronts his controversial coming out. Colton Underwood didn't plan on ever telling the world that he was gay. After all, he'd starred as The Bachelor in 2019 to scout for a wife on national television, searching for love among 30 aspiring brides-to-be. The television personality was convinced he'd spend his entire life pretending to be a straight man, pushed into that direction by his church and small-town conservative upbringing in Illinois. But last month, Underwood made national headlines by coming out to Robin Roberts in a bombshell Good Morning America interview, shattering the heteronormative conventions of ABC's top-rated reality dating juggernaut franchise. After hiding his attraction to men since his early teens, the 29-year-old former NFL player initially disclosed his sexuality to someone else a year ago, his publicist. A year ago. So before the tracking device happens. This is interesting. The confession was prompted not by liberation, but out of fear. I'll just say it, Underwood reveals on a recent afternoon, still adjusting to his new life as an openly gay man. I, at one point during my rock bottom and spiral, was getting blackmailed. Nobody knows I was blackmailed. Okay, framing himself to be the victim here. Underwood takes a deep breath as he tells this story for the first time. According to him, last year, while living in Los Angeles, he secretly visited a spa known for catering to gay clientele. Shortly thereafter, he received an anonymous email, which has been reviewed by Variety, from someone claiming to have taken his nude photos at the venue. By the way, I love Variety. It's so nice that they mentioned that they actually reviewed the email and they're actually taking their sources seriously. Just a nod to journalism. It's called, trusting what you're reading as real. Let's see if they push back and get us some real information about what he did to stalk and harass Cassie Randolph. Underwood never saw the alleged photos and explains he was at the spa just to look, saying he should have never been there. The unidentified sender threatened to out him in the press, and in a panic of paranoia, Underwood forwarded the email to his publicist, Alex Spieler, which forced him to finally have an honest conversation about his sexual orientation. Okay, well, how did they get naked photos of him if he was just there to look? Were you just there to look while you were naked? Okay, I guess that's a possibility. I knew that out of anybody in my world, my publicist wasn't going to ruin me, Underwood explains. Maybe he just doesn't want to incriminate himself because going to a spa that caters to gay clientele, clearly what we're talking about here is paying for sex acts. I think that's what we're talking about here, whether it's a rub and tug or whatever the case may be. I'm sure there'll be more to break about that. Television, especially reality TV, has revolutionized how LGBTQ plus people are represented in popular culture. At one time, coming out of the closet was deemed a career killer, but shows like The Real World, Survivor, and the original Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, now rebooted on Netflix, led to a profound positive transformation in how gay people are perceived and helped bring out about progressive changes to LGBTQ civil rights. As new generations of millennials and Gen Zers have grown up with LGBTQ friends and role models, gay Americans have attained the right to marry, and queerness has become more mainstream in media, as proven in shows like HBO's high school hit Euphoria and essentially half of the characters in the Ryan Murphy universe. Yeah, Ryan Murphy is single-handedly on the Mount Rushmore Hall of Fame of producers, directors, writers who has helped the gay community. Absolutely. A gay bachelor, though, Underwood's coming out as soon after he'd entered into millions of viewers' homes as the poster boy of fairy tale heterosexuality. The Ken doll-like star of a major dating franchise touched a nerve. Seen through the prism of reality TV, social media, sports, and faith, these pop-ups are killing me. And as someone who was raised with conservative values, he suddenly found himself mirrored in controversy. His announcement that he was gay coincided with news that he was filming a Netflix reality show about his new life. Social media lit up with accusations that Underwood was monetizing his coming out story. And others legitimately argued that as a hunky white gay man, he was benefiting from privilege, taking a platform that other members of the queer community deserve more than he did. Members of the queer community that fought for their lives to get. Some critics wondered, was his entire season of The Bachelor an act for fame, as he strung along women with rose petals and romantic kisses? Underwood's larger spotlight brought attention to the details of his relationship with his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Randolph, whom he dated for a year and a half after meeting her on The Bachelor. In court documents, she filed a restraining order in September 2020, alleging that he stalked her and placed a tracking device on her car. Not only allegedly, she showed photo proof of it all happening, and of course, he has never properly denied any of these accusations. Rafi Ermach, the editor-in-chief of Pride, a pop culture and entertainment website for LGBTQ millennials, says Underwood coming out publicly was brave, but at the same time, we shouldn't be glorifying someone who has this history of allegedly stalking a woman. A petition on change.org, signed by 35,000 people so far, is pressuring Netflix to cancel the upcoming Underwood series because of those allegations. Despite receiving death threats, Underwood says that speaking his truth was the right thing to do. After his GMA interview aired on April 14th, he was also inundated with congratulatory messages. "I'm happy for Colton," tweeted Billy Eichner. "If you're gay, be gay." And Andy Cohen chimed in on Twitter, "You're free now, Colton. A toaster is on the way." Over a 2-hour interview with Variety, Underwood is still adjusting to his new life as an openly gay man. On this day, before filming a scene for his reality show, he's dressed in a casual attire, joggers, a black baseball cap, and red Nikes. At one point, he picks up his iPhone and scrolls through DMs from strangers, admitting he's most touched by those who write to him, write to tell him he's made them feel less alone by coming out. It's a nice photo. Good black and white. "I know people are saying that this story has been told, but I grew up in Central Illinois," Underwood says. "I've never seen a football player that had made it to the NFL that had been gay, growing up Catholic." He points to some of the more touching messages he's received. "I've had hundreds of gay Christian men and women who are confused in their walk with Jesus say, 'I felt closer to God when I came out.'" As our conversation continues, Underwood addresses the media coverage of his Bachelor breakup. Randolph, who declined to comment for this story, dropped the restraining order against him with prejudice 2 months after she filed last year. Due to a joint agreement with Randolph, Underwood is limited in what he can say, but he talks about the situation in greater detail than he has before. First, he wants to clear the air because he's seen the word abuse next to his name in press reports. "I did not physically touch or physically abuse Cassie in any way, shape, or form, and I want the audience to know that abuse doesn't have to be physical. Mental abuse, the scars from being stalked, harassed, and all the like that happened to Cassie, that lives on with you for a very, very long time. Much longer than a bruise would." And so for him to make a statement that he didn't physically touch or abuse Cassie almost makes light of the fact of what he actually was accused of doing. I never want people to think that I'm coming out to change the narrative or to brush over and not take responsibility for my actions. And now that I have this gay life, that I don't have to address my past as a straight man. Controlling situations to try to grasp at any part of the straight fantasy that I was trying to live out was so wrong. I'm going to read that one more time because this pretty much describes, the whole situation. Controlling situations to try to grasp at any part of the straight fantasy that I was trying to live out was so wrong. And that's exactly what he did. He tried to control a scenario in which he would hold on to this relationship, as the kind of last remnant of his heterosexual sort of being, or his ruse that he had going on. Underwood says that after Randolph broke up with him, he was in such a dark place because he knew in his heart his last straight relationship was over and he'd finally have to face his true reality. He apologizes for his behavior toward her and her family. It's not who I am as a human being, and it's not how I carry myself, Underwood says. If there was anything I could do to take more ownership, I would. But also out of respect to her, I don't want to get into the details. I want this interview to be the last time I address her because it's not fair for her to have her name in articles every time I talk. I'm sorry, and I want her to know that I hope she has the best, most beautiful life. I believe him when he says that, but you can't dictate whether or not it's the last time people mention her in articles until you tell the full story. And while you might have an agreement worked out with her, too many people have been silenced by NDAs or have money thrown at them so they don't tell their story. And then the truth never surfaces. And that's up to them to decide to talk and tell their truth. But it's also up to journalists to decide to continue to speculate. What the heck went down that made you want to put a tracking device on someone's car? That's an illegal. That's illegal in the state of California. You can serve up to 365 days in prison for that. This is a heavy crime. People have freedoms in life, and one of them is the freedom to not be stalked by your ex-boyfriend. After they split, whether he comes out of the closet or not is irrelevant to that whole discussion. Hard pass, stop, case closed, period. After they split, Underwood and Randolph were filming a new reality show together in the summer of 2020 with Jeff Jenkins Productions, Variety has learned. The show, which was developed but never formally pitched, would have followed the ex's life as friends in LA. All right, so it says they were filming a new reality show together, but it was never pitched, which means maybe they were filming some scenes or they were starting some testimonials, but clearly it didn't have any legs. It wasn't taking off. The project collapsed with the restraining order and police investigation, which Randolph requested was dropped in November 2020. Later, as Underwood's very small inner circle came to learn about his sexuality, the production company pitched him on the idea of a show about his journey coming out. And after 5 months of therapy and meeting with a psychiatrist, Underwood decided his story could help others. The show ultimately sold to Netflix and is slated to premiere later this year. Look, if I had any better, contacts over here at Variety, I'd like to know what their deal is with Netflix. I'd like to know because, this is a big story. This is a big story here. And Variety, while they are being quasi-critical of him, it still feels on the side of a fluff piece. It still feels a little fluffy to me. As for The Bachelor, Underwood's coming out has... Lost that. As for The Bachelor, Underwood's coming out has arrived during a turbulent year for the franchise. The dating series, which launched in 2002, is still a major revenue generator for ABC, the network's top-rated unscripted series, attracted an average of more than 5 million viewers for its most recent 25th season. And while a 30-minute spot on The Bachelor still fetches an average of $154,000 according to Ad Age, the show has come under fire for a lack of diversity. The recent casting of its first Black Bachelor, Matt James, did little to quiet the criticism. The franchise's longtime host, Chris Harrison, stepped aside after he defended winning contestant Rachel Kirkconnell, embroiled in scandal when photos resurfaced of her at an antebellum plantation-themed fraternity party. I got my next video coming up right after this video showing Rachel Kirkconnell and Matt James at his charity ABC Food Tours. It's a great video. I encourage you to watch that video after this one and support Matt James and his charity that he's doing for all of the money that The Bachelor makes. $154,000 for every 30-minute spot. I believe they mean a 30-second spot. That's a 30-second spot for an advertising. That's a typo on Variety, I believe. Leave a comment if I'm wrong with that. But for all that money that ABC and The Bachelor has made off of Matt James and the controversy surrounding him, you would hope that they reach deep into their pockets and donate to his charity. As The Bachelor pledges to be more inclusive, Underwood's story only highlights the lack of diversity within the franchise's depiction of love. With the exception of one queer female couple on Bachelor in Paradise, that's Demi Burnett, the franchise's first and only same-sex pairing, which earned a GLAAD nomination in 2020, the show exists in a world populated solely by straight people. It's hard to change a format that has been done the same way, a man and a woman, for so many years, says Anthony Allen Ramos, GLAAD's head of talent. But I definitely hope that we get to see more LGBTQ representation. If people are able to see an LGBTQ person on The Bachelor or Bachelorette, there's a lot of potential for impact. I think it's a great idea. If someone's bisexual or whatever, if there's different people on different spectrums, absolutely get them involved in Bachelor in Paradise. They can have spin-off shows, absolutely. Tell a love story, and as it's seen, regardless of people's gender. I stand by that. ABC and Warner Brothers declined to comment for this story or answer questions about whether there have been discussions about developing a gay season of The Bachelor. Underwood would be all for it. I think they should discuss it, he says. It should be a conversation. Asked if he'd want to return to the series to find a potential male mate, he shrugs. I don't like speaking in definitives, but I'm not in a position to be in a show like that. I'm at a crossroads in my life right now. On some days, he imagines himself disappearing from the industry, completely living a quiet life in Denver, where he recently bought his first home, permanently away from TV cameras. Reality TV has the power to change minds, showcasing underrepresented communities to sections of the country who may not come across gay, bisexual, or transgender people in their everyday lives. But in Hollywood, progress has still been slow. The number of high-profile gay love stories at the movies, among them the Hulu romantic comedy Happiest Season and 2017 Sundance darling Call Me By Your Name, remains small. But while reality TV has a good track record of including LGBTQ people in casts of everything from competition to docuseries, there's still one last taboo in the genre. It's rare to see a full-fledged gay love story or hints of gay romance on a reality TV show. Even on Dancing with the Stars, there's yet to be a same-sex dance couple. When Lance Bass, who is openly gay, appeared on the program in 2008, he was paired with a female partner. Colton Underwood's faced demons as a closeted gay man. It got so dark that he took pills one night last summer, hoping he'd never wake up. I tried to end my life, and it didn't work. That was the saddest and most confused and most hurt he could remember himself feeling. According to the Trevor Project, the world's largest nonprofit for suicide prevention among LGBTQ youth, in the past year, 40% of LGBTQ youth have reported they seriously considered attempting suicide. 80% said that out and proud celebrities positively impact how they feel about being LGBTQ. The story of Colton Underwood coming out is a good story. It's a good story for LGBTQ youth. It's a good story for anyone who's closeted, especially if they celebrate their Christian faith and they're confused about what to do. That's all good. We need to hard separate that story from the story about Cassie Randolph. They need to be separated. You can respect the coming out. You can still question the monetization of it all and telling your story with your past and track record. All I can say is if he's going to be cashing the check from whatever money comes from coming out by using the Netflix story, Netflix docuseries and all that, if he's going to be cashing that check, he has to accept the fact that coming along with that are going to be people commenting on every photo he ever posts saying you're an abuser. That's just how it's going to be. So don't say out of respect for Cassie Randolph, stop bringing it up, because is it really out of respect for Cassie Randolph? And was it out of respect for her when you were caught in her parents' alleyway at 3 a.m. in the morning wondering if she was with another man after you guys had broken up? Is that out of respect for her? Respect is earned, and that's going to be something he's going to have to work really, really hard to get back from a very, very large community. Folks who are in positions to share their story, and not everyone has that opportunity, also have the opportunity to lift others up, says Kevin Wong, Vice President of Communications at the Trevor Project. For Underwood, growing up in Washington, Illinois, with a population of 15,000, there were no gay role models. We had one gay person in my entire town, and he was the butt of every joke. Though he felt that he was different at the age of 6, Underwood never got the chance to interact with gay people. I would have done anything to see a gay football player, he says, getting choked up. The closest person I ever could look at was like Ricky Martin, because I love music. And even Ricky Martin wasn't out of the closet initially, I believe. He recalls the lengths he went to one day to watch Brokeback Mountain, the groundbreaking 2005 romance directed by Ang Lee as a teenager. He used a friend's Blockbuster card to rent the movie so that no one in his family would suspect him of being gay. That was very authentic to who I was growing up in the Midwest. I wasn't a cowboy by any means, but I grew up on a farm in Illinois. I have a similar story where one of my friends, before he came out of the closet, wanted to watch Brokeback Mountain with me. And the reason why was because he wanted to gauge whether or not I was going to accept when he did come out. I found this out after, which is heartbreaking to think that one of my best friends was so worried that I wouldn't accept him that he wanted to gauge me through do you accept them on the movies? And it's heartbreaking to think that exists and people have that fear, but it's not unwarranted because people do get disowned. People do get themselves into dangerous situations after coming out. It's a very brave and hard thing to do. At the time, Underwood, after the 8th grade, Underwood's father saw something on his son's computer. Sorry, the pop-ups keep shifting this thing. Around the 8th grade, Underwood's father saw something on his son's computer that raised a flag. Gay porn was sort of what I gravitated towards, Underwood admits, clenching his jaws. At the time, Underwood denies being gay to his father. I just said that I was curious and I was exploring and just looking. I remember having that conversation with him and being like, just don't tell mom. After college football, Underwood entered the NFL draft, being signed as a free agent by the San Diego Chargers, then joining the Philadelphia Eagles practice squad and the Oakland Raiders. He remembers that when Michael Sam became the first openly gay player drafted by the NFL in 2014, no one in the locker room supported the idea. Their homophobia only drove him deeper into the closet. Well, that's very interesting to hear that side of the perspective, because I was under the assumption that Michael Sam was celebrated for being the first openly gay drafted NFL football player. It was huge news. And sadly, there's for sure statistically dozens, if not hundreds, of closeted gay NFL football players. Growing up in sports, I was taught that gay is wrong and gay is bad, and football players are not gay. By the time I realized that I was gay, I didn't want to be gay. It was easy for me to hide in plain sight behind a football mask and hunting and fishing and the things that this world tells us is masculine and manly. After leaving the NFL in 2016, Underwood stumbled upon a random casting call in Denver for Bachelor franchise. Producers took a quick liking to him. Within a few months, he was on a plane to LA as a contestant on Becca Kufrin's season of The Bachelorette, which aired in 2018. He became a fan favorite, appeared on Bachelor in Paradise, eventually landed a starring role on season 23 of The Bachelor. Part of his appeal was his innocence. He became known as the Virgin Bachelor, and marketing materials plastered his face on a poster similar to Judd Apatow's The 40-Year-Old Virgin. Colton Underwood was fetishized by Bachelor producers for his virginity. That's what it was, right? Underwood's, and not to say it was a different time a couple of years ago, but things do change quickly. Underwood says he didn't initially offer any information about his virginity, but when he didn't engage in locker room banter with male contestants in the house in 2018, that led to a series of questions. The producers, as good as they are, probably picked up on how uncomfortable I was getting, Underwood says. He never felt comfortable with the promotional material for his season of The Bachelor, but he doesn't hold a grudge. I mean, they had to do what they had to do. Over the years, Underwood has repeatedly slammed The Bachelor in the press for overplaying his virginity. Now he offers an olive branch. I was always looking for somebody to blame. He says of his anger, I was passive-aggressive to the franchise after it was done, but all of a sudden, as I was coming out, everything started to make so much sense. I was a miserable person living in a shell of a human being and being who the world wanted to see. I finally had to look myself in the mirror and say, you've got to fix this. Prior to The Bachelor, in his mid-20s, Underwood had a few sexual experiences with men, he reveals. I'll say this, he starts with a long pause. I was the Virgin Bachelor, but I did experiment with men prior to being on The Bachelor. Okay, so he just told us in the last interview that wasn't true. But look, this is what's going to happen. He's coming out of living a lifetime of a lie. So he's going to unwrap layers of lies he's told himself and us. And you have to be okay with that. You really do. This isn't something that he wanted to do because it was a grand plan. He's coming out of a lie. He confirms he was, in fact, a virgin when he was on the ABC show. When I say hookups, not sex, Underwood says. I want to make that very clear that I did not have sex with a man prior to that. He revealed that he joined the dating app Grindr under an alias in 2016 or 2017. He's currently single but no longer on the app. When he ended up finding fame and becoming a household name, Underwood was constantly worried that one of the men he'd hooked up with might sell him out to the tabloids. I remember feeling so guilty, like, what the hell am I doing? Underwood says of his gay encounters. It was my first time letting myself even go there, so much so that I was like, I need the Bachelorette in my life so I could be straight. Well, and it's also very interesting that he wasn't sold out by any of his hookups. Kudos to those guys. Underwood's next act in reality TV couldn't be more different from The Bachelor. The upcoming Netflix docuseries about his life sounds less like Keeping Up with the Kardashians and more like I Am Kate, the show that followed Caitlyn Jenner as she transitioned into a woman and created a new life for herself, taking viewers on a journey of learning and acceptance. Underwood says the purpose of his Netflix show is to share a multitude of LGBTQ plus stories, not just his own. Olympian Gus Kenworthy, a close friend, will appear on the series. But producers have made sure not to just focus on white privileged gay men. In the series, Underwood will explore his position of privilege, partly thanks to Kenworthy, who is featured by his side as someone who can relate to Underwood's experience as a gay athlete who came out in the spotlight. He's been somebody that I've not only learned so much from, but he's held me accountable, and he's allowed me to see the privilege of being a straight, presenting gay white man. Underwood says of Kenworthy, he pointed out how my path has been compared to other people. Despite controversy, Netflix is standing behind the series in hopes of building greater understanding of the LGBTQ community through Underwood's journey. One person's experience will not fill the void of queer stories on TV. We have to do better as an industry to highlight more kinds of lives and love. That said, we hope the show will help challenge outdated notions of what kind of stories can or should be at the center of entertainment. When asked about the petition calling to cancel the yet-to-be-launched series, the Netflix executive says, Colton has been public about his past and the bad choices he's made, and this will be part of the show too. While there is tension with providing a platform, we think his complicated story, which includes him taking accountability, is one others can learn from, and we trust Colton and the producers to address it in a thoughtful way. That's a good trust that they have. I don't trust the producers to have it in a thoughtful way, but we'll have to see how it goes. We'll have to see. The show's going to go on. They're going to make this show. It's not going to get canceled. Netflix is sticking with it, and and we'll just have to see. I'll be recapping the show for sure. Nicole Garcia, a transgender Latina pastor, appears in the series discussing faith with Underwood. Here he is, a cisgender white man who comes out as gay, and he gets a show, says Garcia. Is it the way things should be? Probably not. The whole system is rigged so that Colton could get a docuseries about him. But we can either just rail completely against it, or we can try to use it to raise visibility. How many times have you interviewed a transgender Latina pastor? Garcia adds in a recent interview over the phone. I'm honestly riding on Colton's coattails. I believe Colton really wants to try to use his voice to raise the voice of the marginalized community. Garcia, who has an inclusive congregation in Boulder, Colorado, where she hangs a pride flag in a sanctuary, only agreed to sign on to the Netflix show if she could represent the wider scope of the community, especially with transgender people under attack. The pastor did not come out until she was 43 years old. Now 61, she began transitioning in 2003 and was ordained in 2019. Raised in the Roman Catholic Church in a large Latino family, she lived a life married to a woman and worked as a parole officer, hiding behind a uniform and alcoholism, which led to divorce. Both Colton and I have something in common in that growing up, we felt we had to live into a stereotype. We both had to live into the toxic masculinity that is prevalent in our world. We would both hope that younger people don't have to go through that and don't have to lose so much time trying to be somebody else. Netflix will air Underwood coming out for the first time to his family and friends, including his father, who tells Variety his son's sexuality did not shock him, and he actually tried to broach the subject with him in high school when he had suspicions. First, I put that on myself. What was I doing that he felt he couldn't open up to me? Scott Underwood says. But Colton said, I didn't know what I was yet. I was still struggling. I understood that. He was still trying to figure himself out, his father says. He wishes his son wouldn't live his entire life in the public eye, but he sees the impact his Netflix series may have on families who abandon their children for being gay. If it just helps a few young men and women come out and be proud of themselves and understand that all parents aren't going to be upset, it can save lives. As for the younger Underwood, the reality star is hoping his new show will bring greater understanding and shatter certain preconceived identity politics. My dad is proud to say that he is a conservative Republican, and he is also proud to say, I have a gay son. I think it's important for America to hear that and see that. Right now, the media makes it seem like there is no middle ground. Well, there you have it, folks. Very, very fascinating expose on Variety regarding Colton Underwood, blackmailed into coming out of the closet. And with all that said and done, sharing his story on Netflix, going to be sharing his story of coming out of the closet, going to be sharing his story, presumably about he spoke in this article about being on the gay dating app Grindr while he was a closeted gay man, and having some hookups, of course, but not sex. So, it's very fascinating. Leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Let's do our best to embrace the stories being told while coming out and support the coming out, and differentiating that from the stalking and harassing his ex, Cassie Randolph. People will comment saying Cassie and Colton have an agreement not to talk, so we should let them have their privacy. The story is a platform. So as Colton shares his platform in a path for people to come out of the closet, there also needs to be a platform for domestic violence victims. There needs to be a platform for people that have been stalked, harassed, abused physically or emotionally, mentally. There needs to be a platform for people to understand that it is not right and that you shouldn't get away with that. And people have the right to their own freedom and not feeling like they are being stalked or harassed. So I don't believe it's our place to stop having that discussion. I think we're going to walk and chew gum at the same time. Leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Another video coming up right after this. Hit the subscribe button. I will talk to you guys later. Bye now.